Welcome to the last section of Chapter 4. Now, this is a section that we do in this Chapter 4 area because we have been talking about graphing, and we are going to be graphing some linear inequalities. Now, these are a little different than the equations that you've been drawing because there is an area that you need to shade, and shading can be really easy if you understand how to read the algebra symbols. Now, let's see if I can show you. Now, this particular slide is talking about an inequality. Now, the difference between what we've been doing and what you are now going to see is this symbol. And it can also be this one. Now, these are inequalities. An equation is a line. Well, this is part of the lines that we've been drawing all through Chapter 4. But now we're going a little further. And I'm going to give you some steps on how to graph these inequalities, but I will be very honest. It's a lot easier to show you than it is to give you a series of steps. But once I've done it a few times, maybe the steps will mean something more to you. And these are our steps. Okay, it is most important that you write the equation in slope-intercept form, which means that you are writing all of the equations in y is equal to mx plus b. And you'll notice that I'm using the equal sign because that is going to give us the line or the dividing part of our graph. But you have to draw the line first. But the curious part is the y has to be on the left-hand side of the equation, because that is going to help us translate what it means when we are shading. Now, once you've done that, and you've gotten one equation or all of the equations in slope-intercept form, you then want to look at the symbols. If you have a line underneath the inequality in the equation or the original problem, you're going to draw a solid line. This is going to separate our quadrant or coordinate plane into two parts, a top and a bottom, a right or a left. But that solid line is also saying that any ordered pair on that line is going to make the inequality true. But we then have these symbols. Now notice that they do not have a line underneath them. That means when you draw on the coordinate plane, you are going to need to have a dashed line for the equation we created in step number 1. Now, the reason for the dashed line is any point on that dashed line cannot be used. So therefore, you have a solid line, you have a dashed line. Now, once we've drawn the line, whether it be solid or dashed, on the coordinate plane, you then have to understand the reading of the equation that you wrote in step 1. Now, look at A. Do you see that this arrow is pointing to the y? This is saying find all y values less than the line. So if you want to find where to shade, you want y values less than the line. Or sometimes we call it below. Or it could be to the left, depending on how we draw the equation. And then notice here. Do you see that the arrows are pointing away from y? Well, this is saying find all the y values greater than the line, which means what's above the line? And just to make sure that you've graphed it and shaded correctly, you want to choose a test point. You want to put it into the equation and see if it makes the inequality true. And you normally pick a point that's either not in the shaded area to prove that where you shaded was correct, or pick a point not in the shaded area. And if it makes it false, you know that you've graded or you've shaded the correct area. Now, I'm going to give you 2 examples on how to interpret these 4 steps. Now, first off, you're going to be given an equation. Okay, it says graph 3x plus 4y is less than or equal to -8. Well, our step number 1 is that we have to put this equation in slope-intercept form. This equation, which means I subtracted 3x and I divided by 4. Okay? Now, I then look at this symbol right here, or I could even go back to the original one. Do you notice that it has a line underneath that symbol? Which means I am drawing a solid line. Now, if you remember, in slope-intercept form, this point right here happens to be 0, -2. And remember, this is our slope. We went down 3, right 4, which puts us right here. Okay. But then remember, we could go up 3 and left 4. Which just puts it right there. This is why you want 3 points for this solid line. Now, we're going to read the equation. Find all of the y values. This is what it's saying. Find all of the y values less than or equal to the line. Well, notice where my blue shaded area is. It's everything below that line. That's how I read it. Now, you're going to notice I have a test point, 0, 0. Well, if I come back up to here, 3 times 0 plus 4 times 0, is that less than or equal to -8? I don't think 0 is less than or equal to -8, which means where I shaded in blue is correct. Okay? Now, let's try it again. Okay, now this one's a little different. Okay, I still am given this problem. Graph -x plus 2y is greater than -4. Well, my first step is to rewrite this equation in slope-intercept form, which means the y is on the left. Okay, well, that meant I added x and I divided each term by a positive 2. Okay, now just to confirm, remember, my y-intercept is 0, -2, which is this point right here. Now my slope is up 1 over 2, which is right there, or down 1 over 2, which is right there. And notice right here, this symbol does not have a line under it, so that means I have a dashed line. Okay, now it's time to read. Where am I going to shade? Well, it says find all y values greater than, because that's what that symbol says, y values greater than, and this is something that people don't understand. The line is that part of the inequality. That's the line. That's how I got the y-intercept in my 2 points. So I'm learning how to translate this equation. And if you'll notice, my blue area is above. Well, you'll notice again, I took a test point. Now, my test point, I always like this one because it's 0, 0. I can even do 0, 0 in my head. But again, I have a -0 plus 2 times 0. Is that greater than -4? I'm coming back to this equation. Well, is 0 greater than -4? Well, this time the answer's true, which means the blue area that I just shaded is correct. Okay. And you can try any point you want. I like to use always the origin because that's a good indicator. It's either in the shaded area or it's not in the shaded area. But this is how the steps work. Okay. Now, we're going to do a couple of together. Okay. And here we go. We're going to do 4. Now, first off, I have a graph. I have an equation. First thing I want to do is to solve for y. Y less than or equal to -2/3 x minus 3. Okay. Now, I have a -3. So that means I'm going to put a point right here. That's my y-intercept. Now, from this point, I am going to go up or down 2, because I have this slope, -2, +3. I'm going down 2, right 3. I'm going to put a little dot right there. Down 2, right 3. But remember, I want that third point, which means instead of going down and right, I'm going to go up and left. So I'm going up 2, 1, 2, left 3. Now, before I take my ruler, look at this symbol. It has a line underneath it, which means when I connect my blue dots, I'm going to have a solid line. Okay, now we're going to translate. I'm looking for all of the y values, and notice this is less than or equal to the line, which means I'm shading below the line. Well, again, look at my beautiful point right here, 0, 0. Let's check that. 2, 0, plus 3, 0 is less than or equal to -9. I don't think 0 is less than or equal to -9. My orange shaded area is correct. This is a false statement, so I shaded correctly. See how easy it is? Let's try it again. Okay, solve for y. Well, this one's a little easier. This is y greater than positive 2x plus 1. Oh, that was easy to do. 1 is going to be right here. Now remember, my slope is 2 over 1. So I have a positive 2 over positive 1, which means from that red dot, I go up 2, right 1, which means I'm sitting right there. Okay? But then remember, I got to go in the opposite direction of my red dot. So this is -2, -1. I'm going down and left. Down 2, left 1. Now this is where you're going to have to be careful. Look right here. That symbol does not have a line underneath it. So that means I better have a dashed line showing on my graph. Okay. Well, let's read it. Y, and this symbol says greater than the line. Well, greater than the line, well, let's look at this red dot. That red dot is 1. That's my y value. What's a number greater than 1? 2, which means I'm shading up here. It's above the y values of my 2 blue dots and my red dot. Y is greater than the line. The line was that dashed part that I have here. And I'll make it black just so everybody sees. Okay. Now, this one may be a little bit different. Well, I still have 0, 0, but let's do something different. Let's pick this point right here. Now, this says I have 5, 0. This is my x. This is my y. Well, let's go and check it. Y is 0 greater than 2 times 5 plus 1. Is this true? No, this is false. I picked a point in an area that I didn't shade. Well, it comes out to be false, which is what I wanted to do. So therefore, the orange area that I shaded is correct. See how nice that was? Let's try it again. Now this one is really nice. It's already set up for you. Probably I should have done this one first, but I didn't. I kind of wanted to do a few before I got to here. Well, again, my y-intercept is 0, -2, which means it's right here. That's my y-intercept, 0, -2. Now, from that hot pink point, okay, I have 3/4. Well, right now they're both positive, which means I'm going to go up 3, right 4 from my hot pink dot. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. Now I want to try again. So I'm doing the opposite. This is down left from my pink dot. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. Okay, now look at this symbol. It does not have a line underneath it, so that means I had better have a dashed line. Okay, now let's read this. I'm looking for all y values less than the line. Well, my hot pink had a y value of -2. Well, what's less than -2? -3, which means down here is where I should be shading. Well, again, just to make life interesting, I'm going to pick a point in the area up above. Let's pick this point. Let's do this one right here. That's my blue point. That's my checkpoint, my test point. Now that test point is -5, +5. This is my test, and it better come out to be false. Okay, or let's make it even better. Okay, because I have a fraction here. How about if I make this point a +4 right here? That'll make my life easy. Okay, well, let's take a look. -5 is less than 3/4. Now remember, this is 4/1 minus 2. That's why I changed this to a 4 instead of a 5. Make my fractions cancel out. Well, this will give me -5 is less than 3 minus 2. Look at this. This is false, which means the orange area that I shaded was correct. Okay? See, it's not that hard. If you understand the 4 steps that I gave you, and we've been practicing, makes life really easy. Now we're going to do one more. Okay. Now this is where you're going to have to be careful. And you're going to say, why? This is going to be negative. If you remember about negative inequalities, when I divide by a negative number, the symbol right here has got to flip. When we divide by a negative coefficient, the inequality must flip. Remember that little detail? Well, it's coming back to haunt us. Well, let's figure this out. This is giving me a negative y less than or equal to negative 3x plus 4. But because this is negative, this has got to flip. Y is going to become positive, 3x becomes positive, and negative 4. I divided everything by a negative 1 coefficient. So if you forget to flip that symbol, you're going to be graphing in the wrong area. You're also going to be graphing the wrong line. And unfortunately, we got our point right here. This is our y-intercept. 0, negative 4. And our slope, okay, this is 3 over 1. So I have a positive 3 over positive 1. So from my blue point, I'm going up and right. So from my positive point, or negative 4, I'm going up 3, right 1. So I'm going to be right about there. But don't forget, I got to do the opposite, because I've got to go down from my blue point. So this is down and left. 1, 2, 3, and I'm right here. Now, this symbol has a line underneath it. So that makes life really easy. I have a solid line. Now, I want the y values greater than or equal to the line. Well, my blue dot has a negative 4 y value. Well, what's greater than negative 4? Negative 3 and everything above it, right up through here. That's where I shade. And remember, I want to take a checkpoint. I want to make sure that this green dot, or where I put my green X, is going to make my inequality false. If that green little x of the ordered pair 8, 0 makes my equation true, and with this one you do want to check, because if you didn't flip the inequality, you will get what we call a false positive. It's got to be false. Well, this is saying 3 times 8 minus 0 is less than or equal to 4. Well, it better be false. 24 is less than or equal to 4. That's false. That means I shaded in the correct area. But if you want to check, let's do this circled one. I have a negative 4 there. Let's do that check. 3 times negative 4 minus 0. This is negative 12. Is that less than or equal to 4? This is true. So the black area where I shaded was correct. So you can check in the area and outside the area. If it's outside, the inequality better come up to be false. If it's in the area, as we did with that circled little point I have in the middle where the black area is, and it comes out true, I've shaded in the right place. Okay. Now, we have also something that you're going to enjoy. These are called compound inequalities. And you remember that lovely word, and or? Okay, this is where you're going to need some graph paper on your own, because when you look at your final answers in ALEKS, they're only going to give you one part of the graph that's going to be shaded. But you have to understand that I use two colors here, or three colors. I'm going to graph this inequality. Well, that's this part of the graph. Notice my yellow area? And then I'm going to go over to the pink area, and I'm going to graph it. But I'm doing it on the same graph. And because this is an and, where does the pink and the yellow come together? It comes together in this blue area. The solution is where the yellow and the pink intersect. That's the catch. And where the yellow and the pink intersect. So when you look in ALEKS, all they're going to have is just that blue, or where I shaded in green. They're not going to give you the pink and the yellow. You're going to have to do that on your own and find out where do they meet. Okay. Now, this is an or. Okay. Now, or is a union. This part of my graph is the first equation, y less than or equal to 1/2 x. And then my pink part was this equation. But because this is an or, it's putting the pink and the yellow together, which means all of this blue is my answer. There's only that little part here between these two lines that has no shading. It's where the pink and the yellow all are shown. That's an or. The union is everybody, or all parts. Where was the pink shaded and where was the yellow shaded? Okay. Now, we're going to do some examples here. I'm going to do an and I'm going to do an or. Okay. Now, I like to use highlighters with this, okay, because it makes it easier for me to see. Now, first off, this is an and. So I'm looking for, now, I'm going to do this. This is going to be where I'm going to shade in pink. And this is where I'm going to shade, I'm going to shade in yellow and pink. I can't talk. Okay, we're going to do the yellow first. Okay, now first off, this does not have a line underneath it. And if you remember, this is going to give me a dashed line right here. It's on -3. This is a vertical line. And what's less than that line? Well, it's going to be everything over here. Well, then, okay, now solve for y. So this is 5y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 15. Y is greater than or equal to 2/5 x minus 3. Okay, I'm going to graph. Here's my -3. Now, my slope is 2/5. I'm going up to right 5 from my green dot. Up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. And then I'm going to do the opposite, which is down and left. -2, -5 for my green dot. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right here. Now this has a solid line. Okay? Now, here's the fun part. Where are the y values greater than the line? Well, my pink place is everything up here. But where does the pink and the yellow have to intersect? That is going to be this blue area. It's this blue area. This pink part and this little, and I'm going to put a little, what I'm going to do is this pink part and this yellow part where I have 2 X's, they're not included. Okay. And again, can you take a test point? Well, let's take this one right here. This is -6, 0. Only that area. Well, if I put it in the first equation, -6 is less than -3. That's true. Well, 5 times 0 minus 2. Now remember, this is -6 is less than or equal to -15. Is 12 greater than or equal to -15? That's true. So my blue area that included initially the yellow and then my pink, where did they intersect? So be aware that only that blue area is going to be seen on your answers. The pink that has the little red X and the yellow part, they're not going to be seen. You have to know, out of these different places, where's my answer? Okay, here's my last one. Okay, or, and as I did before, I'm going to graph or shade this in yellow, and then I'm going to shade this in pink. Okay, now my first equation is y greater than or equal to 3/2 x. Now remember, it's plus 0. That's my y-intercept, 0, 0. My slope is 3/2. Up 3, right 2, which means I'm going right there. And then I'm going to go down and left, which is -3 over -2 from my black dot. Down 3, left 2. Now this has a line underneath it, which means I'm going to draw a solid line. Okay, now, where are the y values greater? They're up here. They're in this yellow area. Okay, they're above my line. Well, let's now go to the next one. Well, we got to solve this one for y. So this is y is less than a -3x plus 3. Okay, my y-intercept is 0, 3, which is going to be where I'm going to put my green dot, right here. Now, my slope is a -3 over +1. What does that mean? I'm going down from my green dot, and I'm going right 1, which means, okay, I'm going to make a different color here. Down 3, right 1. That means it's going to be right there. But then I got to do the opposite. I've got to go up and left, which is 3, -1 from my green dot. 1, 2, 3. Now, notice that this does not have a line underneath it, which means I have a dashed line. But I got a shade. Where am I going to put my pink? Well, my pink is saying I want the y values less than the line. Well, if my green dot is a +3, well, where am I going to find +2? I'm finding it here. It is here. Okay? And because this is an OR, okay, let me show you what happens. It's not just where the pink and the yellow crossed, it's where everything was shaded because it's an OR. Notice I only have this blank area, this white area. And again, let's check it. If I take this point, now it's in neither of them, so I better get, oh, let's make life a little easier here. Let's do this point 6. That'll make my life a little easier with my fractions. Okay, y is greater than or equal to 3/2, okay, times 6. And don't forget my y is 0. Well, if I cross cancel, this better come out to be false. It does. And if I take the other one, this is 3 times 6 plus 0. Is that less than 3? I don't think 18 is less than 3. This is false. This was my test point, and I better get them both false. Well, hopefully you've had a good time doing this, and I always like to do it for homework because it's a lot of shading, and I get to color for a change, get to be a little kid. Well, with that said, we have now finished Chapter 3-4, and you should have a great time. Hey! It always takes me a while for it to come back. Well, do have a wonderful day. Enjoy 9.3, and I will see you. Bye-bye.